Today I want to show you how I captured this particular shot with a very simple setup and a few clever tricks to capture that cinematic high-end look. Let's dive right in. So I shot this with the FX3 at 120 frames per second. I knew I wanted slow motion and I wanted movement, and I use the Eldachrone slider with the motion control on it. I also have on that Eldachrone the vertical module, which allows me to tilt that track. And you simply add, there's tension rods that you can see here, and you just add different tension rods to counterweight the camera and balance it depending on the angle that you set the track to. And it works pretty good. When you use movement and slow motion, you need the camera to move as fast as possible, or else like the shot is just really, really, really long and you barely see the movement. Now the Eldachrone is not really designed for fast movement, so I have it set to its fastest setting and it's barely enough. I use that track system for all my corporate film work and it works great, but you can tell that there's some limitation for product shot with that particular system just because of the limitation of the speed. The first thing I needed to do was create the movement and set both point, the starting point and the end point, and then the camera will continue ping pong and keep doing that movement over and over again. I didn't want to do a crazy angle where we go from the bottom of the cup all the way to the top, kind of like looking down at the cup. Like there's nothing appealing about the top of the glass. And so for me, it was more traveling, across the height of the cup just to see that coffee sip through. And so it's a pretty shallow angles. It was a pretty small move. It probably was like a 5-second move in total. I used the fake ice cube as a base. I wanted to have the shot of the glass sitting in the ice cube to make it look even more refreshing. And then I placed a couple of coffee beans around it as well, and use a simple sprayer to spray some water onto the cup to make it look like that cool, sweaty glass look. And I know in the product world, people use something else than water. They add gelatin to the water so that the droplets kind of stick more to it. I've used this technique a couple of times, and for me, it works great. I actually want to see the water droplet kind of slide down the glass. I don't want them to just stick on the glass. And so spraying the glass works just fine for me. But I'm sure there's other tricks that experts uses. And so, by spraying that bottle just before we start rolling, then I have those droplets. And, if I really want them to see them slide on the glass, then I keep spraying for quite a while, and then I can roll camera and you can start seeing those droplets kind of roll. So that's one trick that I've used a few times to create that feel of something refreshing. And so I did it in this shot as well. And I also used the fake ice cube inside the glass. I started with real ice cubes inside the glass. And the reality is the shot of those cubes in the milk looked very yellow. And I think it's just the way the light is reflected off of that ice, and somehow yellow is the color that kind of comes out. And so it just didn't look appealing. And then what it also did is the ice was a lot more compact in that glass. And so it would take a long time for the coffee. Once I pour the shot, it would take a long time for the coffee to sip through towards the bottom of the cup. Using the fake ice cube, it allows more space inside the cup because they're more square, and so they don't fill gaps as much. And so there were plenty of space between the cubes. And so when I pour the shot, then the coffee was able to sip down through the cup rather quickly. And so that was helpful. The only downside of those ice cubes that I've experienced in the past using them before is they actually don't float, they sink. And so it's not realistic when pouring like a full glass, for example, where the ice would float back to the top. Now, if you're doing like a cocktail shot, somebody drinking a whiskey, for example, those 2 or 3 cubes that you would put would sit at the bottom, and that would look really realistic. But just keep that in mind. Those are pretty heavy for ice cube, I guess, and so they typically sink. Probably one of the hardest part was to kind of figure out what the background should look like and create depth in a way that would work with both beginning shot where the glass is pure white with just milk, and the end shot where it's being filled with the coffee and the cup turns brown. And so I wanted a background that was a little darker so that the cup would stick out, but also not too dark so that when I pour the coffee, it just wasn't brown on brown. And so having that window in the back and the blue wall back there and even the mirror and, and the white countertop, like all those different materials, all those different shades of shadows, it just created more and more depth and allows for the glass to just kind of stick out. And so that worked out pretty good. And then, so I kind of exposed my shot for the background and did my settings to allow the background to be as dark as I wanted it to be. And I also didn't want to shoot too shallow because at first I have another lens that I was using that's a 1.3. And when it was that shallow, not the entire glass was in focus, and it was just too shallow at this range, at this distance. And so I shot this one a little bit more closed off so that we would have the glass more in focus. And there's plenty of shallow depth of field back there. So with the shallow depth of field and the different shades of shadows, it really created a background that was dynamic, that was not just flat, and that worked for both setup of the white glass and the brown glass. And then it was all about lighting. And I first used my key light as the Amaran 200X, and it's actually on full blast. I wanted as much intensity going towards those ice cubes and that cup as possible. And you see that it creates this harsh shadow right here on the counter. And the reality is you don't see it in the shot because the shot is close enough to the cup. And when you do see the shadow on the counter, it's just another shade of shadows. It doesn't, you can't really tell what it is. When we look at the shot itself, you can see here how bright those ice cubes are, and there's all those little dots of those reflections, and that's just coming from that main key light and being very harsh. And I actually don't mind even like the shadows of the beams on the counter. I think it just works for me. And then as we play the clip, here's the main shadow, and it just doesn't, to me, it doesn't bother me. It's just an extra layer of shade, just a shade of shadows through the screen. The other light is a 1x1 panel. This is a JVM, and I just kind of sit it on the counter. It's battery operated right here. I didn't even have to plug it in. And I put it on pretty harsh as well, and that is to create a very harsh edge light on the edge of the cup. And I thought that was a well added element. Like it just added that nice little sharp edges that I thought worked out really well. And you can just see how strong that edge light is here and how it's capturing the side of that cup. I could have put another one on the other side, but then I think it would have felt very flat. So for me, I want to stay on the side of the key light and just add an edge to that same side. And you can see here how bright that edge is. And this is all of that edge light that we have sitting on the counter. I was able to spray the cup, set it to ping pong, and then grab my 2 shots, wait for the camera to be where I wanted to, which was at the bottom, but like already starting to move back up, and then pour my 2 glasses and then quickly tap my focus to make sure my glass was in focus. So nothing complex, nothing very difficult, just a couple of lights, a spray bottle, the track to control the camera, and then the timing of pouring the shots, and that's it. Use the comment section to tell me what you like, what you didn't like about the shots, or how you would have done things differently. It's always great for us to learn from each other and see the different creativity and the different approach to some of those situations. Thanks for watching. I appreciate it. Happy filming.